Okay, so my name is Shelly. I'm a neurophysiotherapist and a staff member at Parkinson Society BC. And we're very happy to be holding this hand and dexterity workshop series again for you this year. For those who have attended to our session last year in February, I believe, this is sort of similar to what we did with a little bit more things added on. So like always, these webinars will be recorded as well. So if you did want to revisit these at a later time, you can also view them on our YouTube channel or our website. If you don't know how to find us on our website or the YouTube channel, you can drop us an email and we can send you the link. So our email you can see at the top of the chat box. It's pinned at the top, which is info@parkinson.bc.ca. If you don't see a chat box that's popped up on your right-hand side, it might be in a collapse icon at the bottom of the page, in which case there'll be a circle icon. And if you click on that, the chat box will pop up. And then you'll see that at the top of the chat box, it's got our email information on there. So for those who may be new to our webinar series, the way that you would communicate with us through the webinar series is through that chat box there. So we do have everybody's microphones disabled just because there's quite a lot of people here and we don't want any sort of feedback going on in the background. So if you did have any questions about anything throughout the webinar, you can feel free to type it in the chat box and my lovely colleague Alana Dillon from Parkinson Society will be able to help answer some of these questions as well. Of course, I can read the chat box as we go along today. So if there is anything specific in regards to the exercise that we're doing, I can help answer those as well. Okay, so for today's class, you don't need anything other than a little towel. So you can see here, I've got a tea towel or a kitchen towel. Ooh, there you go, now you can see it. So it's a pretty small towel that we're using today. I know in the class advertisement, we also asked for a little elastic band and a little cushion. We're not gonna be using those two today, but we will be using them as the series go on. But for today's class, we just need that little towel. So if you can have it handy beside you, that would be great. And of course, given the nature of the hand and dexterity class, we're going to be sitting down the whole time. So there's no standing in the class. And ideally, if you could be in a chair without armrests, that would be great. Just because that way, when we start moving, we don't accidentally hit our arm or hurt ourselves on the armrest. But of course, if you only have a chair with the armrest, that's okay. Just be a little bit mindful of where your arms are. Okay, good, let's get started. So hopefully you can all see me and hear me. I'm just going to move back a little bit in my chair. That way you can see me a bit more. And to start off with today is we're going to do a warm-up. So even though we're doing the hand and dexterity as a focus, we do want to make sure we warm up our arms in general as well before we start the class, just because if everything is warm, it's a lot easier for you to move your hand than if you were to just do movements of the hand the whole time. So we're going to start with a bit of a gentle warm-up. Okay, so we're going to sit up nice and tall in our chair. Hopefully you're shuffling a little bit further forward in the chair, so we're not leaning back or slouching to the side, right? So even though it's a hand class, we want to make sure we have good posture. So you want to sit nice and tall on your sit bones, back nice and straight if you can. Think of the crown of the head reaching up to the ceiling. We're going to start with some shoulder rolls. So we're going to reach those shoulders up to our ears and then roll them back. So nice gentle movement. You don't have to do them too big to start with, but just start by getting the shoulders going. And then with every repetition, see if you can make the movement a little bit bigger each time. Really using those muscles at the top of the shoulders to lift them up towards the earlobes. Good. And on the next one that you do, we're going to now involve our elbows into these circles. So we're still circling back in the same direction, but this time as you squeeze those shoulders up to your ears, you're also going to be getting those elbows involved, so circling those elbows as well. If you need to do this slower, don't worry, do it slow. It's not about speed right now. We just want to get everything nice and warm, making sure we're still sitting up nice and tall, right? So we're not all of a sudden slouching to the side. We want to make sure our spines are nice and long. Good. On the next one, we're going to involve the whole arm. So see if you can circle those arms back in the same direction, as big and as wide as you can go. If you're somebody with shoulder issues and you can't quite go overhead, that's okay. You don't have to go the full way around, but you can kind of just do a range that works for you as long as you're still doing the circular pattern. So it doesn't have to be all the way overhead if you can't. Let's go for last 3, 2. Let's do one more. And let's rest the arms for a second. Still sitting up nice and tall, we're going to bring our chin to our chest. And from here, we're going to roll our necks just in the bottom. And we're not rolling to the top just yet, but we're just going to roll our heads from side to side, gently stretching that neck a little bit. Don't have to go too far, just go to a range that you're comfortable with. And then when you're ready, we're going to take it up into a full circle all the way to the top and back down, making sure that we're still sitting up nice and tall. So remember, even though the class is for your hand and dexterity, we're always going to start with a bit of a warm-up for the upper limbs and the neck, because everything is connected and your nerves come down from your neck into your hands and into the rest of the arm. So it's important to get everything moving as well. Okay, we're going to circle in the other direction. Remember, you don't need to go at the same speed as me. Just go at a speed that works for you. Nice and gentle. If you're somebody with neck issues, just be a little bit careful as we're doing this. Good, let's do one last one. And we'll rest there. We're going to float both of our arms up in front of us like so. And then you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together and pull your elbows back, almost like they're coming towards each other. So if I'm going from the side, it looks like this. You're squeezing those shoulder blades and you're pulling those elbows back as far as you can. Let's do that again. Squeezing those shoulder blades back, really opening the front of the chest, pulling those elbows back, and then reaching those arms forward again. Good. And again, still sitting up nice and tall, right? We don't want to be slouching as we're moving on to new exercises. I want you to imagine you're balancing a glass of water or a book or something on top of your head. So we're staying nice and tall. Good, keep going here. Squeezing those elbows back, squeezing those shoulder blades together. One last one. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. And let's rest there. Now we're going to hold up one of our arms. It doesn't matter which one because we'll do both. And with the other hand, you're going to start squeezing. Give yourself a little bit of a squeeze all the way down your arms. Now, what we're doing here as we're squeezing down the arm is we're just drawing some attention and some focus to this arm so that way our brain can recognize all the different aspects and all the different parts of this upper limb here. That way, when we start moving, it gets a little bit easier for us to engage some of these muscles. So squeezing from the top of the shoulder all the way down to the very tips of the fingers. Don't forget the thumbs as well. Just waking up the different areas in our arm. Good. Once you've done that a few times, we'll switch to the other side. But I will finish this last repetition here with you. Don't forget the thumb, the fingertips, and all the way back up to the shoulder again. Good. Let's switch sides. So same thing on the other side. We're going to work on both of our hands today. So we want to make sure we're waking up both sides and not just one. Squeezing all the way down that arm, all the way to the fingers, not forgetting about the thumb. Squeezing those fingertips. Nice and gentle. You're not trying to hurt yourself, but we just want to draw some attention to the arm. Good. Make sure you go all the way back up to the shoulder. One last one here. Good stuff. All the way to the fingertips. And back up. Good. Switch arms again. This time we're going to gently do a pat all the way down the arm like so. The back of the arm all the way back up. Same idea, just waking up the different areas, drawing some attention to the limb that we're going to be working on. Good. All the way back up to the shoulder as well. And then what we're going to do after that is you're going to flip the hand over and do the same thing on the inside of the arm. All the way back up. Good stuff. Gentle patting, making sure you're not hurting yourself. A light tap, if you will. Good. Let's switch sides. Same thing on the other arm. We'll start with the back of the arm, all the way down from the shoulders to the fingertips and all the way back up. Nice, gentle pat, just to draw attention to the arms that we'll work on today. All the way back up. And when you're ready, you can flip the hand over. So that way you're now patting on the inside of that arm, all the way down to the fingertips and the palms as well. Nice gentle tap. Feel free to go slow if you like. So if you like, you can go slower. You don't have to do the same speed that I'm doing here. Good. Last time, going up. And rest. This time we're going to squeeze our elbows into our sides and bend our elbows like so. So you can see my elbows are stuck in and bent and my arms are up. So from here, you're going to place your palms facing upward to the ceiling, and then you're going to place them down to the floor. So let me just lower this camera down slightly so you can see me, like so. So you're just squeezing the elbows in and you're flipping the arm, the forearm up and down. And you might find that one side feels a little bit more stuck than the other. That's okay. If you would like, you can get your good hand to help your slightly weaker hand to flip over and do a bit of a stretch here if you would like. But the idea here is we're just getting the forearm moving into these positions we call supination and pronation, which is quite important for having hand function because we do lots of different movements with the hand that requires this kind of forearm turning. Let's do 2 more here in your own time. Trying to get both sides even if you can. Good. Okay, and this time, keeping our elbows tucked in, we're going to go to the wrist. We're going to flip the wrist upwards towards you like so. So you want to bend the wrist upwards as far as you can. Give that a little bit of a stretch. And then you're going to bend the wrist down as far as you can, giving a bit of a stretch, maybe holding it for a few seconds. And then same thing again, bending the wrist up. If you're finding one side is slightly more stiff than the other, you can use your better hand to take the slightly stiffer hand and press a little bit further to just help with that stretch if you like. And we're going to stretch that wrist down, holding it for a few seconds. Again, using your hand to help stretch the more stiff side if you would like, but you don't have to. Good. And rest there. Good. I'm going to pull my chair forward now, because now that we've done our warm-up, we're going to get into the actual hand function. So first things we're going to do is we're going to hold up both of our hands here. So you can't see here, but I've actually got a table in front of me, and I'm placing my elbow on the table, just so that way you don't have to sit there for the whole hour trying to hold up your arms. So if you would like, you can place them on your lap, you can place them on the table, if you would like that extra support, just so that way you don't feel like you're using all of your shoulder strength to try to hold up the arm. So we're going to do both hands together here. We're going to start with the fingers open. And what I'm going to get you to do is I want you to imagine you're placing your hand on a shop window, a mirror, or something flat, and you're really trying to open them as wide as you can. And you want to make sure that when you are doing this movement, we're not bending or curling in any way, even though my fingers are straight. So you want the palm to be nice and flat as well. And then you're going to squeeze in into some fists as hard as you can, holding the fist here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to spread the fingers as wide as you can again. So if you look at both of your hands, the idea here is you're trying to get both sides even. So I know a lot of the times we tend to have one side a little bit stiffer than the other. So see if you can get both sides to match in the movements here. And then again, squeezing in as hard as you can for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and opening as wide as you can. I want to see those fingers change colors because you're opening them so wide. Good. And again, coming back and squeezing, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and opening as wide as you can possibly make them go. Good. Last one. Squeezing in as tight as you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and opening as wide as you can. Good. And relax slightly, so we're not going full extent of the opening, but they're still open. From here, we're going to bring down one of your hands. Doesn't matter which one, because we'll do both. And we're going to do some oppositions here. So you're going to bring the tip of your index finger to touch the tip of your thumb without the other fingers curling in like so. So you want to make sure that the rest of the fingers are relatively still. Of course, there'll be some movement because the fingers are connected. So there are going to be some movement, but you want to make sure that you're, as best as you can, only moving the fingers you're trying to move. Now we're going to do tip of middle finger to thumb. And the rest of the fingers, you want to keep them relatively still and still sticking up to the ceiling. Good. And open back up. Now we're going to do the tip of our ring finger to the tip of the thumb. Keep the rest of the fingers pointing upwards and open if you can. And then we're going to open back up. And we're going to do the same thing with the little finger. Trying to keep the rest of your fingers facing the ceiling as much as you can. And opening back up. Let's do the same thing in reverse. We're going to do tip of little finger, the tip of thumb. Rest of the fingers staying up. Then we're going to open the hand back up. Now you're going to do your ring finger to your thumb, trying to keep the rest of the fingers as still as possible. And open back up. Make sure we really open all the way, right? So we don't want to end up doing this. We want to keep the hand open in between. Middle finger to thumb, the rest of the fingers staying up if you can. And open back up. Now index finger to your thumb, the rest of the fingers staying up if you can. Good. Let's switch hands for a second here. We'll put them together in a little bit, but we'll start with the other hand. So same thing, you're keeping those the fingers open and you're keeping the palm flat. So we're not cupping in like so or bending forward. So you want to try to keep the hand nice and flat. And we're going to bring our index finger to our thumb, trying to keep the rest of our fingers facing up. Don't let them curl in like so. Don't let them touch together. Keep them in the same position as much as possible. And then we're going to open back up. Now we're going to touch the tip of your middle finger to your thumb, trying to keep the rest of the fingers upright if you can. And open back up. Now we're going to bring our ring finger to our thumb, keeping the rest of the fingers up if you can. And open back up. Now we're going to touch our little finger to our thumb, trying to keep the other 3 fingers up if you can, And make sure they're not touching. And open back up. Let's do the same thing in reverse. Little finger to your thumb. Keep the rest of the fingers upward if you can. And open back up. Now the ring finger to the thumb. And open back up. The middle finger to the thumb. And open back up. Now the index finger to the thumb. And open back up. Good. Now we're going to do both hands together. Open the hands, make sure the palm is nice and flat. We're going to do the index finger to the thumb on both sides, keeping those fingers pointing upward. Might be a little bit more difficult now you're doing both hands together. And we're going to open the hand back up. Really important is you open the hand back up in between each of these movements. Middle finger coming down to touch the thumb. The rest of the fingers stay up. And open back up. Now you're going to do the ring finger to the thumb. Every other finger is going to be facing up. Open the hand again. Now the little finger to the thumb. This one might be the toughest one. And open the hand back up. Let's reverse. Little finger. And open. Ring finger. And open. Middle finger. And open. Now index finger. And open. Good. We're going to do that again. We're going to do that twice through. We're going to do it slightly faster this time. So see if you can keep up with my speed without the technique going down the drain and we start to have these claw fingers. Let's try. Index finger to your thumb. Open back up. Middle finger to your thumb. Open back up. Ring finger to the thumb. Open back up. Little finger to the thumb. Open back up. Reverse. Little finger to the thumb. Back up. Ring finger to the thumb. Back up. Middle finger to the thumb. Good. Now index finger to the thumb. And open. And again, index finger to the thumb. And open. Middle finger to the thumb. And open. Ring finger to the thumb. Make sure all the other fingers are still up. And open. Little finger to the thumb. And open. Try that again. Reverse. Little finger to the thumb. And open. Ring finger to the thumb. And open. Middle finger to the thumb. And open. Last one, index finger. Open. And shake out that hand for a second. Okay, good. So you can see that as we get a little bit faster, you'll probably find that your fingers start to curl in a little bit more. It's a little bit harder to control. So if that is pretty hard for you when we do it faster, don't worry. Start slow. Just so that way you don't get the freezing kicking in or any of the other kind of issues you might get. So start slow and then you can build up the speed. Next exercise we're going to do, we're going to hold our hands up again. We're going to think about flattening the hand and bringing the fingers together, but keeping them long. So you want to almost think about if you were looking in a shop window and you pressed your hands against the glass and you're peering in, you want the hand to be nice and flat. So the palm is nice and flat. The fingers are nice and long. So we don't want anything coming in like this or coming down. You want to keep it as flat as you can. And from here, you're going to choose one hand that we're going to work with first. So just like before, we'll do one hand at a time and then kind of put them together. So one hand at a time. I want you to imagine the entire time we're doing this exercise, your hand is pressed against the shop window. So here, we're going to open up the first web space here. So everything else stay completely still, fingers all squeezing in together except for the first web space. Hand is nice and flat, right, against that imaginary window. And then you're going to close that space. You're going to now open the second space, noticing here how all the other fingers are still squeezing together. So we've only got one space open and we're not curling in or bending down. We're keeping everything still nice and flat. And then closing back in. Now we're opening the next space, but everything else stay completely still, squeezing together completely flat, so we're not curving in or having the fingers bend down, but everything is completely flat. And then we're bringing it back in. Now we're opening that last space here while everything else stays still. And closing in. Good. How did we do? This one's a little bit tougher, I know. We're going to do the same thing in reverse. So we're going to open that last space here, keeping everything else completely still, and then squeezing in. Next space. Flattening the rest of the hand, and squeezing in. The next space over, keeping all the other fingers squeezing together, making sure we're still nice and flat. And together. Now the last one here, opening that first web space again. And squeezing in. Good, let's switch hands. Same thing on the other side. We're going to start with the hand nice and flat. So imagine it's pressed against the window. And we're going to start by opening that first web space, keeping the rest of the hand exactly where they are when you started without having them bend forward or crunch in. And then you're going to return to the start, all of your fingers together again. Now you're going to open the next space over, but keeping everything else squeezing together nice and flat, right? And bring it back in. We're going to go to the next space over, nice and flat with the hand, fingers stuck together, and together. Now the last space here, everything else is squeezing together, nice and flat, not crunching forward, but making sure everything is flat as if you're pressing your hand against a window. And back in. Let's reverse. Little finger out, everything else squeezing together, hand nice and flat. And back in. Then the next space over, keeping everything else nice and flat. And closing. Then the next space over, making sure the hand is still nice and flat, all the fingers squeezing together except for the area that you're trying to isolate. And bring it back in. Now the thumb. Bring it in and shake out your hand. Good. We're going to do the same thing with everything together. So both hands up. If this is really hard for you, you can actually place your hand on a wall so then you can do these kind of movements on the wall or against a table. So that sometimes makes things a little bit easier than doing it kind of freehand like what we're doing here. Okay, both hands nice and flat, fingers squeezing together. You're going to open up the first space here. Everything else stay where they are. Fingers squeezing together except for that space you're trying to isolate. And then you're going to bring it back in. Then the next space over, keeping all the other fingers squeezing together. Hand nice and flat. And back in. Then the next space over, probably the hardest one here. Keeping the hand nice and flat. Fingers all squeezing together except for the areas you're actually trying to isolate. and then bring it back in. Last bit, little finger, everything else stay together. And back in. Same thing in reverse. Little finger, and back in. Then the next space over, keeping the palm nice and flat, and back in. Then the next space over, keeping all of your fingers together except for that space that you're actually trying to do. And back in. Now the thumb. And back in. Good. Shake it out. Well done. So the reason why a lot of these kind of movements feel pretty hard is the reason we have hand dexterity function is our ability to actually be able to separate the different fingers and choose selectively what you want to do with each finger while the other fingers are doing something different. So for example, if you were doing a button, you're selectively using a few of these fingers at different times, whereas the other fingers are kind of curled out of the way. So a lot of the times when we lose our hand dexterity function, it's actually because we're losing our ability to isolate and selectively choose which muscles to turn on and off. So for that reason is why we're doing these kind of isolated movements that are pretty hard. And your hand's probably a little bit sore, but we're moving on now, so it's okay. You can shake out the hand. Okay, our next one is we're going to use our towel now. So if you joined in late, earlier at the beginning of the webinar, I mentioned about having a little towel like this. So this is a tea towel or a kitchen towel, so something like that, something small. Ideally not a bath towel, just because with bath towels, it's a little bit too big and it's going to take too long and it might be too heavy. So we want it to be pretty small, pretty lightweight. And what we're going to do here is you're going to hold on to the corner. So the corner bit of the towel, you're going to hold on with one of your hands because we're going to do both in a bit, but we're going to start with one. Okay. So you're holding on to the corner of the towel. And what I want you to do here is without the hand touching the table or your shirt, I want you to try to use your fingers and scrunch the towel into your hand. So notice here how my palm is facing down. The reason I have my palm facing down is to make it a little bit tougher because now gravity is pulling the towel down and you're kind of working against gravity to pull up the towel, whereas if you're going the other way and your palm is up, it's a bit easier because you can kind of do this kind of thing and throw the towel into your palm. So I want you to avoid that. Same with when your palm is down. I want you to avoid trying to throw the towel into your hand. Instead, I want you to be pretty still and you're just using your fingers here to scrunch up that towel. So have a go, palm facing down. You're using just the fingers, not forgetting about the thumb, right? Because a lot of the times our thumb gets caught underneath. So you want to scrunch up the towel to the best of your ability. Feel free to do this slower. You don't need to do this fast. And then whenever you've scrunched up as much as you can and it won't go anymore, I want you to just restart again. So throw the towel out, hold on to the corner, and restart again. So making sure that your thumb is also moving, all of your fingers are moving. It's not just, the thumb staying still and getting stuck underneath the cloth, but you're using all of your fingers to try to pull the towel into your hand, into as small of a ball as you can. So you can probably see for this reason is why a bath towel wouldn't be so good because you'd be doing this forever. So the smaller the towel, the better. And then when you can't scrunch up anymore, you can throw the towel open, holding on to the tip, the corner again, and then restarting. So you don't have to do it at the speed that I'm doing. Feel free to do this as slow as you need to, really trying to get those fingers going, scrunch up that towel into your palm as much as you can without cheating, without doing this. So you can see here, if I put my hand against a shirt or my leg, it's a lot easier because your shirt or your leg kind of holds the towel in place. So if this is a really impossible task for you to do, by all means, sure, place your hand against your shirt or your leg to help. But if you can do it freehand like this, even better. I know this one's pretty tough, so don't worry if you're not quite getting it. This is always the hardest one. Let's do one more on this side and then we'll switch to the other hand. Good. And then relaxing that hand, you can shake it out. You can move your shoulder around if it's feeling pretty stiff. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So with your other hand, same thing. Find the corner of that towel, and you're going to hold on to that corner like so. And then remember, we're keeping the palm facing down, so that way it's a little bit harder. And if you can, do it freehand, meaning the hand is not going against the shirt or the leg or the table. And you're going to start at the corner and using all of your fingers, not just the first two, but all of your fingers, including the thumb, you're going to try and scrunch up that towel into your hand, just like we did on the other side. You might find one side is easier than the other, or perhaps not. Maybe both sides are equally hard, and that's okay as well. As long as you keep trying to get all the fingers moving, don't have any fingers stuck underneath the cloth. And then when you can't scrunch up anymore, you're going to shake out that scarf and restart at that corner piece again. And again, please feel free to do this slower. You don't have to do it at the same speed as I'm doing. If this is too hard, doing it freehand, feel free to use your shirt or the table to help you support that hand to make it easier. How are we doing? Do we hate this yet? I know this one's really tough and the hand tends to get pretty sore after doing this. So don't worry, you can take a break if you need and come right back into it as soon as you can. Good. Let's do one more. So wherever you are, you're going to do one more of the scrunch, or if you're already in the middle of one, you're going to finish that one and then we'll move on. Good. And have a rest. You can shake out the hand if you like. Oh, I see a question. Can we scrunch up with our elbow on the table? Yes, by all means. Supporting the weight of your hand, of your arm is absolutely fine. What I was talking about with the support was more if you were scrunching against like your top or your leg or something like that. But yes, absolutely. So don't worry if those exercises so far feel kind of hard because we will keep repeating them as the weeks go on. So we will keep up this kind of repetition in order for you to get good at these things. Then of course we'll build on from them as well. So we're going to do one more exercise, and then we'll do a bit of a stretch to finish. So our last exercise, still with the towel. This time, I'm going to tip this down a little bit so you can see. So with the towel this time, you can see I have a table here. With the towel, you're going to fold it. So you're going to fold it sort of so that it's long, so kind of like hot dog ways, if that makes sense. So you're going to fold it so that it's nice and long, but it's a little bit thinner, so it's not so thick. And what we're going to do from here is we're going to start at one end of the towel. So you're going to practice wringing the towel now, and this is how it's going to work. We start at one end, you're holding onto the towel. You're going to use both hands to squeeze and wring as hard as you can. And notice as I'm doing this movement, let me do that again. As I'm doing this movement, you'll notice both of my arms moving equally. So what I don't want to see is this. Only one arm is moving as you're wringing, right? You want both arms to wring equally, squeezing as hard as you can, almost like you're actually trying to get some water out of this towel. And then when you've done that, you're going to move down the towel. See how we did that? Again, wringing equally on both sides, and then moving down the towel. So you're wringing all the way from one end to the other, squeezing as hard as you can, making sure both sides moving equally, and then going down the towel again, wringing that towel all the way to the end. Okay, all the way to the end. And then when you get to the end, I want you to reverse the other way. So here, since I've already gone this way, I'm going to reverse and go the other way. Still having both sides wringing equally, not just one arm moving. And then you move down the towel, same thing. So now we're wringing in the reverse direction. Still having both of our arms moving together at the same time, right? So we're not biasing one side and only moving one side. So you want to make sure both sides are equally taking part in this exercise all the way down the other end. So you notice here, this is where we have a little bit more of our wrist action coming in with wringing of the towel and a bit more of that kind of forearm turning that we talked about before in our warm-up. When you get to the end, you're going to do the same thing, coming back the other side, reversing the direction of the wringing again. So basically, you're going to wring the towel from end to end, reversing the direction. So the direction that you're squeezing with both of your hands each time you get to the end. Well done, everyone. Really squeezing. Imagine you're trying to actually get some water out of this towel, even though it's not wet right now. You'll probably find that one hand feels a little bit more stiff, a little bit tougher to wring, but that's okay. Keep going all the way to the end, making sure both sides are going equally. And then you're going to reverse it to come back the other direction. And please make sure when we're doing this exercise, we're not going as fast as we can, right? Because here is not about speed, but we're just trying to get a good grip, a good enough grip to actually be able to turn, right, our wrist and forearms as we're going down this towel. So you can probably imagine here, for this reason, is why we asked for a small towel and not a big bath towel, because you can imagine how long this exercise would take if you had a big bath towel. That's also, if it's big, then it's hard to hold in your hand in one go like this because it's just too much fabric. So a small towel is definitely a lot better for this purpose. Good stuff. Keep going. All the way down to the end. Good. Last time, reversing to the other side. Last round. Really grabbing on and bringing to the other side. Both hands still moving equally. Well done. And when you're finished, you can just place the towel down and we will get ready for our stretch. Good. How we doing? Are your hands tired yet? Maybe not, maybe yes. Okay, I'm gonna sit back a little bit so you can see me. So we're going to now stretch out our hands a little bit. So what we're gonna do here is we did a lot of these kind of grip type movements. So we're just gonna pull the fingers back. So notice here how my wrist is staying straight. I'm taking one of my hands and I'm just pulling. So it's kind of like this from the side. I'm just pulling gently my fingers back. So see here, my fingers are going back, but not the wrist, right? Just the fingers are pulling back. Nice and gentle, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Same thing on the other side. So just the fingers going back, not the wrist, right? Just the fingers, holding it there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. We're going to go the other way. So other hand, we're going to bend the fingers forward, just the fingers. So see how this movement is different to that movement. So we're just bending the fingers forward, holding that stretch for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Same thing, other side, just the fingers, bending forward, holding it there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Now we're going to take our hand and we're going to bend our wrist back this time. So the wrist, holding it back, have your elbows on the table if you like some support. Bending that wrist back, and we're going to stretch that, hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, coming back up. We're going to bend the wrist the other way, just as far as you feel comfortable, where you feel that tug, holding it there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Same thing, other side. We're going to bend that wrist back, feeling that stretch there, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back up. Other side, bending that wrist down, holding that stretch for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. I'm going to get you to shake out your hands, shake out those fingers just a few times. Let the fingers be as loose as possible as you're shaking it out. Good. Now, we're going to bend our elbow, okay? And you're going to take your hand, grab hold of the space underneath the wrist you're holding here, and you're going to turn. So you're turning your forearm in one direction as far as you can, holding there. Let me go down so you can see. Turning there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. I'm going to go the other direction, grabbing hold underneath the wrist and turning in the other way. So you're practicing twisting, this twisting motion of the forearm, holding it there, hold that stretch, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Same thing, other side, making sure you're bending the elbow, right? Because if your arm is straight, this is not the same movement as this. So bending the elbow, you're doing the forearm, whereas if you straighten the elbow, it's actually coming from the shoulder. So you want to bend the elbow, grab hold of the space right below your wrist, and you're going to turn it one way as far as you can, stretching it there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the other way. Turning the form the other way, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Shake it out again. Okay, this time I'm going to move back. We're going to circle those arms forward. So you're going to bring those arms forward. So remember at the beginning, we were talking about when we bring our arms in this kind of circle motion, if your shoulders really bother you and you can't go all the way up, don't worry, just go as far as you feel you can. We're just going to gently shake out any tension we've got in the arm by doing this circle forward. See if you can sit up nice and tall as you're doing this. And then from here, on the next one, you're going to touch your shoulder and still circle in the same direction, but this time with those elbows. Good, well done. And then on the next one, arms down, just the shoulders, coming up to the ears and circling down forward. Nice and gentle. One more. Good. Now, we're going to sit back towards the back of the chair, like so. You're going to place your hands behind your head if you can. If you can't, maybe touch the front of your chest and have your elbows up. What you're going to do, let me turn sideways. You're going to lean back into the chair and go up and over the chair, just so you get a little bit of a stretch. Actually, hang on, let me change my chairs because this will be a little easier for you to see if I use a shorter back. So you can see here, the back of my chair is shorter. I'm going to place my hands here, lean back into the chair, and arch over the chair, making sure the chair doesn't tip, so just be careful. But you're going over the chair, and you should feel a nice stretch across the back. Open that chest, and come back up. Good. Let's do one more here. Arching over the chair, opening those elbows, opening that chest, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up and rest. I'm going to change my chair over again. We're going to shuffle forward in our chair again. Have the arms drop down beside us. We're going to sweep the arms across like so, and up and overhead, and open them down, making sure to keep that back nice and long as you're doing that. Crossing over again, reaching up overhead, and opening those arms nice and wide. One more. Crossing those arms, lifting them up overhead, let your gaze follow, stretching that back open. And rest. And you are done. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our Hand and Dexterity workshop, the first session of 2021. So I hope that was enjoyable for you all. I know there are some exercises on there that are a little bit tough, but don't worry. If you find it quite hard, keep at it, because every week we're going to be revisiting some of those basic things that we went over today, so the foundation, for the rest of the workshop. And then we'll continue building on those skills a little bit and making them a little bit more difficult, probably adding in some combinations as well as we move on in the class. So just a reminder that the class is recorded. So if you did want to revisit the session at any point, you can drop us an email, which is info@parkinson.bc.ca. And we can send you a link to our YouTube channel and to our website if you would like to revisit the session. If you have not been to our session last year, we do have the sessions last year recorded as well. So you can also find those videos on our YouTube channel if you would like to have a look. Great. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Thanks, everybody.